as well. And so it would be, and you have it to do.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Cindy, to the Improvising Harpist Facebook interview. Today we're talking to Mehlinda Heartt, coming to us live from Vancouver, Canada, BC, where it's been raining all winter, but today it's lovely. And as you said, it improves everybody's mood. So I'm delighted to meet you. This is our first time chatting, and really honored that you were
Mhm.
able to make some time to come and talk to us about improvising and playing. And we're going to, as we were talking before we got started today, we were also going to talk about injuries. I have my own stories with injuries, and this is sort of a taboo subject, I would say, that musicians don't like to talk about this too much because the show must go on, kind of, always. And how do you deal with that? So I want to welcome you, Mehlinda, to our little Facebook group. I have to maybe call this a show or an interview, but I'm delighted that you're here. So I wanted to start by asking you to tell us how you got started playing the harp. So many people love to hear the story of how do harpists, where do they get started?
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a long story, and and how everything developed. But I basically I played piano from the time I was, I guess, I don't know, 12, and and then you know time went on, and my mother decided to move to Vancouver. I'm originally from Edmonton. And so my mother decided to move to Vancouver, and she sold a piano. And she sold it and didn't even tell me until after it was sold. I was quite upset. And she said, well, I really needed the money and I had to, sell the piano. And so there I was without a piano, thinking, well, I'll get another piano. And meanwhile, I had joined, a new church, and uh, there was, there was harp music, and I had listened to some. And anyway, I was about, I guess, 18 or something like that, 19. I I had a spiritual experience. I never ever thought about playing the harp. I woke up in the middle of the night. It wasn't a dream, and it was somebody was playing the harp and singing in the room. So the next day, I thought, well, that must be a sign that I should go look for a harp and learn the harp. Forget the piano. But in Edmonton at that time, well, it was pretty hard to find a harp. It was pretty hard to find a harp teacher. There was only one. And at that time, which was in the 70s, I I found I thought, well, the lady in the symphony must teach. So she was the only one that was teaching. So a lady by the name of Nora was playing for the Edmonton Symphony. So I got a hold of her, but I had to find a harp. And literally, I think there was 3 harpists in the city. So I uh, contacted the symphony harpist, and then she gave me a name. So I started on a pedal harp because there were no lever harps, and that's all I could find, which is extraordinary. And so I started lessons with her, and then a year later I joined the youth orchestra and played in the little symphony youth orchestra. And you know and then you sort of get into your 20s, and I got married. In those days, people got married younger, and I had to give up the pedal harp, and I bought a lever harp. So uh, I wasn't taking any lessons. I was married and expecting my first child, and so I was composing a lot. And so that's how that sort of went for a while. And then a couple years later, I moved to Vancouver. And when I moved to Vancouver, I wasn't going to go into harp. I was going to go into architecture because I had 5 years experience working in a architectural firm. And my mother at the time said, well, what do you really want to do? And I said, well, I want to play the harp. And she said, well, why don't you go and do that? And I said, well, I can't make a living playing the harp. And she said, don't worry about the money, do what you love. So I was a week away from going to study architecture, and I canceled and switched to harp.
Wow.
And so I went to college first a year, and then I went to university. And of course, I loved composing, and they had a wonderful department where you could, perform, and you can perform your own compositions. And so the first piece I wrote had flute and harp, and the first concert, I didn't think anyone was going to receive it very well, but everybody loved it and got a standing ovation. And
Wow.
yeah, people really, really liked it. And then I went to university and I studied with the symphony harpist here. But I was still studying composition and writing for multiple harps and other instruments. And I actually studied with Stephen Chapman, who's quite a famous Canadian composer. And I didn't, at back in those days, they were playing very modern music, like really disjunct modern music. And I was like, no, I'm a sucker for a melody. So I, there is no way I'm going to write music like that. And so I decided to write, you know, and I love, you know, fantasy. So I wrote this piece about an underwater world. It was called Vision of Eteria, and it had many instruments in it, a bassoon, even water bubbles it had, and two harps and a singer and a flute. And I remember Stephen Chapman, the composition teacher, saying, are you sure this isn't going to come across as hokey?
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't care what people think. I just want to, you know, create what I feel. And he said, okay. And so the concert was on, and it was quite interesting because in the middle of the concert, my low, I think it was the low gut A, popped in the middle of the concert. And if you've ever heard a big gut string break, it sounds like a gunshot, kaboom, going
Right.
off. And I thought, well, I guess that's part of the composition. And luckily it was a low note. And at the time, the university radio station recorded everything, and they got a hold of me later and said, can we play your song on the radio? And I said, sure. They liked it. And my composition teacher said, oh, it went better than I thought it would. and and then years later, like 10, 15 years later, after I finished university, I had bumped into somebody somewhere, probably at a gig, and they said, oh, I study composition too. At university. And he asked me my name. He goes, oh, you're Mehlinda. And I go, what do you mean? And he said, oh, in the composition, like now they got some classes going on that like group class. Before it was individual um, instruction. And he said, oh yeah, Stephen Chapman talks about you. And I go, what did he say? And he said, she dared to be out of the box. She dared to be different, and it worked. And so don't be afraid, don't try to be like everyone else, just be yourself. So I thought that was wonderful, coming around full circle like that. And so so then after I finished university, I joined, because what do you do back then? That was in the 80s. There was no internet. And so I joined, I got on with an agent. And that wasn't going too well, because that particular agent wanted me to find the work and give her the commission. So I thought, I'm going to start my own agency. How am I going to do this? Okay, so back in the old days, you had yellow pages, a phone book, so you could advertise. So I used to advertise, and it was expensive, you know, back in those days to advertise, but it worked because I got a lot of work. And there weren't very many harpists then, but now there's hundreds. But back then, honestly, there was like a dozen
Mm.
harpists, and maybe, I don't know, eight that were working professionally. I mean, I don't know. Uh, don't quote me on that, but back in the 80s, it was pretty bleak. And so then the 90s rolled along, and slowly, the internet opened up. Websites were starting to be created. And one day I thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a website and I could have sound samples and maybe a video? And so this is what I'm thinking and dreaming about, oh, how can I expand my business? But where do I start? Because it was the very beginning. And then lo and behold, 3 days later, I get a phone call from a new wedding website, like a wedding website that covers all kinds of uh, wedding, uh, people that do weddings. So they thought, well, we'll have DJs, we'll have decorators, flowers. Oh, let's get a harpist. So they found me in the phone book, called me, and he wanted to come and meet with me. So he came to meet with me, and I told him I would really like to have a website one day. And he goes, well, we can build a website for you and put it on our wedding planning website. And I said, okay, how much is that going to cost? It was $1,800 back then.
That's a lot of money back in the day.
1800, and this is like 1996, something like that. And I was like, well, I can't afford that. And, because I had young children, and I had two children at that time. And I said, if you can cut that in half and I can pay over 4 months, I'll do it. And before he left, I said, let me play you something. So I sort of played something. And I asked him, I said, can I have sound samples? And he said, yes. I said, can I have a video? He said, we're not there yet. Like,
Mm.
nobody's putting videos up yet. So apparently that weekend they were having a meeting, and the owner of the company said, oh, we're ready to do a video, the first video. Anybody have any suggestions? And so the guy that came to see me said, well, why don't we have the harpist playing? Let's do a video of her playing. But you got to cut the price in half and let her pay over 4 months. And it was a deal. So Monday comes along, and I get a phone call, and it's like, okay, we're going to give you this deal, and we're just going to come over and videotape you playing a song. And I said, okay, cool. And so uh, the very first video of me playing, I don't even have it anymore. It was black and white and pixelated, like horrible,
Mm.
blurry, but that's what it was. And so they put me up, and I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure, but anyone can prove me wrong, that I was the first harpist in the world to have a website. The
Oh,
first,
wow.
in 1996 or 97, because I had the website on this wedding planning website. And so for 2 years, my website got the most hits because of that video. So
Hmm.
I was doing 3 weddings on a Saturday, 3 weddings on like, it was ridiculous. I was so busy. So it launched me, and I yeah, it was amazing. And then many people, it took almost, I don't know, 8 years later, everybody else kind of followed along and got their own website. In the 2000s, they started getting their own website. So
So I want to stop you for just a second and just, acknowledge how fearless and like a real icebreaker you've been your whole career. that you did what you wanted to do when you were doing composition, and that you were jumping into the internet world way before many people. I mean, not just harpists, but lots of
Yeah,
people didn't have websites. And for not in 96, I remember the first website I looked at in 96 was just this tiny little thing with a couple pages and information. It didn't have any sound. It was just,
yeah,
like how to contact this person. And
yeah.
and it was kind of hard as a user to get on the internet at that point still too, and to figure out how to use it. And there you are doing it. That's just amazing.
Well, I just, I dream big, and I was just kind of, and as soon as I think of something, and then all of a sudden it happens. It's just like, it's like something from above. The universe just goes, "Oh, I like your idea. Let's put it into action."
I like that.
And and so then fast forward, a harpist having a job regularly is pretty difficult. I mean, a couple harpists in this city, one lady, she's been playing the harp longer than anyone, probably over 50 or 60 years. She always had at the tea house, she had this gig that she did every Sunday, and high tea somewhere in North Vancouver, but nobody ever had a regular gig. And my dream was, boy, it sure would be nice to have a regular gig. And so there is this restaurant that's 2 minutes from me, and they have live music every night, and it's a Middle Eastern restaurant. Like it's called East is East, and so they had a lot of people like playing like Roma music and flamenco, and some Middle Eastern type music like Iranian and that kind of thing. And but I when Lorena McKinnon came out with all her music in the 90s, I remember, my son dancing to her music, and at that time she never published music, and I was like, one day I want to play her music, because she has a lot of Middle Eastern type music also.
Hmm.
And it took years before she finally published, but it's for piano. So I rearranged most all of her songs for harp.
Oh, wow.
And then I put it in a book. Like, I started publishing my arrangements, and I contacted, um, I think it's Quinlan Road, which is her company, and I said, I've rearranged your music for harp, and can I get permission to publish? And they said, how many books? And I said, and they said, okay, it's going to cost you this much. So I had to pay to publish the books. I didn't know I was going to talk about this. I should pull out one of the books to show you. It's a beautiful cover. And so I had all this Lorena McKinnon music. And so every time I used to go to the restaurant, the manager, I said, she loved the harp, and I said it would be so wonderful to play here. And I said, I play Lorena McKinnon music. And she's like, oh my God, I love Lorena McKinnon music. And she's like, I'll talk to the owner. I'll try to get. And it took me years to get into the restaurant. One fellow that played there, he did a lot of Romanian music, had me come, featured me one night just to play a bit. And slowly, 7 years ago, I got a job at the restaurant.
Hmm.
And at that time, I was playing 3 times a week, and that's 3 hours a night, 3 sets. And I had a cellist, and I had a drummer, and I started with the Lorena McKinnon music, but then I would do classical music, and I was like, geez, let's explore a little more. And eventually I got an Iranian, a Persian singer, and so I started arranging a lot of Persian music. And then I worked with a Turkish musician, and so I started arranging a bunch of Turkish music. And then now I have a drummer, and she's a Krishna girl. And so I started exploring a lot of mantras and Bollywood music. And so, and then I also do a lot of like jazz. So I have 2 different drummers. One's a kit drummer. And so anyway, basically you can play anything on the harp, and basically most everything I play, I've arranged
Hmm.
myself to work.
So can you give us a little sample of some of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I'll start with a composition. I'll do shortened versions because some of them they're kind of long. So I'll do this one. I love swimming, especially in lakes. There's lots of lakes around here. Uh, and I composed a song called Swim. And so it's in A major, but it fluctuates between A major and then between a kind of a Phrygian mode. And, I think, we'll talk after playing a couple of things, we'll talk a little bit about what's important to learn. So here's a little bit of Swim. And my one drummer I have, he loves swimming and he likes playing this song because he 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 thinks it really puts him in the mood. I'll do an abbreviated version, and so let's see. Okay, so. And then I'll go into the little improvising section. So
Ah, nice. It's beautiful. I love
moves
that.
around in keys, and I love modes, and I love minor keys, and I like harmonic and melodic, and a lot of the Middle Eastern type keys. And so I basically in this last section I'm just doing I'm literally in the key of G, and but this is a Phrygian mode, so in D. So I'm just doing D chords and C chords. That's it. And then scale. It's good to get little rhythm. And so literally when it gets to this part, I don't even look. Then I'm kind of looking around the audience and checking out people, because
Yeah.
everything's just kind of close. And I think a really good exercise is one of the ones I teach is, well, you have to know chords. You have to know your chords. You have to know your inversions. So here's a D note. Here's a D3, third. Here's a D5. Here's a D chord in its first inversion, D chord in the second inversion, and D158. So you can do fifths broken, or a chord broken if you want to move, or a D158, or octaves. So you can even just do D5 and every second note or every note. Change the chord. It doesn't even matter what I play, it's the left hand, it's the chord that's important.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's what I try to teach people too. It's
Yeah,
that having that really solid left hand, and then
this
your right
left,
hand can really go anywhere.
it can go anywhere, it can do anything, but you have to know your chord and like what you're doing, and like if you're in the middle of a piece, and so I have one drummer who loves to improvise because he's a kit drummer, so he can do so much more. And so I just look at him and I go, okay, it's your turn, and away he goes, and I just sort of kind of stay low under him and do very little, but I just stick with the chords. Or if I'm in the middle of a piece and I want to improvise and stretch it, I just look at the chords and I just play those chords, and then the right hand can do anything. But
Hmm.
you have to have exercises to, the different things, and especially kind of syncopated, you can do every second note, you can do scale each note, or you can do every second note, then triplet, or four note, scale, just 3 2 1 3 2 1, or 4 3 2 1 3 2 1, and then dotted eighth notes with the 16th, so you get. But you have to learn rhythm, and you have to learn your chords. Like you have to learn quite a bit about theory, I think, and those kind of things, and so that's super important. So that's taking one of my compositions. I can play the Paint It Black. So
Yes, please.
when I arranged Paint It, well, this was actually trying to remember why I arranged this. Well, I liked it because it's got a Middle Eastern key.
Hmm.
It's in E minor, but a harmonic minor, so you've got the D sharp. So how exciting is that?
I love that.
So basically, it's an E chord and a B chord. So you can just start off by improvising, doing four notes, or doubling, triplets. Yeah, 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. But so anyway, so that's a little intro to the Paint It Black. So here is Paint It Black, and so. Improv.
That's so awesome. That
Yeah,
is so awesome. Who would have thought Rolling Stones on the harp? But yeah, why not?
yeah, and so I added an improv because I'm always trying to stretch songs, when you've got 3 sets in one night. And so sometimes I'll just do a pop set, and
Mhm.
then I'll do a Middle Eastern type set. And then sometimes I'll do a jazz set, or I'll do Lorena McKinnon, or something like that. And I even play rap on the harp. Would
You
you like?
do? Yeah, let's hear some rap.
I have 2 rap songs. I have Still Dre. So I had this wedding. This was quite a funny story. Last year, last year, into pandemic. This bride, she was a lawyer. She wanted me to play at her wedding, and a couple of weeks before, she goes, "Can you play Still Dre for the groomsmen?" And I listened to it, and I'm like, "That's only like a couple of chords, It's like." She goes, "Yeah, that's all I want. Yeah, that's great." And she actually picked Paint It Black for the signing of the registry.
Oh, wow.
So we were at the waterfront. It was outside. It was, I think, June or July. And I started to play this Still Dre that I'm going to play you. And everybody just was shocked and giggled. I thought it was quite funny. And then during the signing, I'm playing Paint It Black, and there and it was actually officiated by a judge, and there was probably all lawyers and judges at this wedding. And I'm playing Paint It Black, and the everyone's really confused. And so anyway, she gets back to the front after signing, and she looks at me and gives me the biggest smile and nod, and I'm like, cool. And then afterwards, the judge who officiated the wedding, she comes up and she goes, "You can't believe how happy," she told me, "she was during the signing that you were there playing Paint It Black." And I was like, okay. And then I had to play at the reception after, and a couple of lawyers came up to me and they go, "Whose choice was that? Pick Paint It Black?" And I said, "Hers." And they go, "Yeah, she would pick that." So I thought that was quite funny. But here is what she picked. And yeah, this is
How cool is that?
Isn't that cool?
That is so cool. And really it's this is the beauty of the harp is that it's as harpists we can watch what you're doing and say that's pretty straightforward. It's not really highly complicated, but it's so beautiful.
Doesn't this sound amazing? I didn't think it, I was like, okay. And then I played it and I did add, I added a middle section, just chord, you know,
Yeah,
just the chords, you know,
yeah.
you got to stretch this song. That's all it is this little tiny little
Right. It's
melody.
this tiny little thing that, so that's where being a good improviser comes in and being a good arranger comes in, a composer, because you know how to take that little tiny bit and turn it into something that covers the time period that you
You have
need.
to stretch it, and
Yeah,
you have to take, the chords and then go, well, what else can I do with it? And what else can I do with it? And how can I make it different? Like each variation, even though, the basic theme comes in the middle, but like, what else can I do? Oh, I can double the speed, you know. And it's so funny. I have students, and I have this 8-year-old boy, and he likes to play fast things. And I thought, do you want to learn this? Because he loves rap stuff. And he's like already learned it, and he's gonna play it at the little concert. I'm just like an 8-year-old can play it.
that's, yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
like
That's so
if
cool.
you've got good skills. And here's another one. You know the song "Unholy." This is another one. I've never seen a harpist do a cover. I'll probably have to record it and put it up. But so here is another kind of Middle Eastern. So when I heard it, and it was kind of famous in the last year, I heard it and I was like, ooh, I hear that Middle Eastern key in there. So, the harmonic or melodic minor in there. So I'm going to arrange this, and it's so cool. So this is a very cool one. And when I'm at the restaurant there, and on Friday nights it's young people.
Right.
On other nights, you've got people from India, you've got Iranian people, and older people. But on Friday nights it's young people, and it's like it's really hard to please them because they're on their phones all the time. And I have to tell this funny story. It was a couple weeks ago. So there's a table like next to the stage, and I'm getting ready to start with my drummer, and I have to I have to amplify the harp, I have to do the settings. Like there's a lot to do to set up. And so this big crowd of people come in and they sit down, and I can hear the guy go, "Oh no, it's a harp." And I heard that, and he goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know it was going to be just harp." And oh my God. And I looked at my drummer, I said, that guy just said that. And he said, "Well, let's show them." And
Mm,
so I said, "Oh, let's start with some pop music." Because, when it's a young crowd, then I usually will do the pop music,
mhm.
because, and every time I play Still Dre or Unholy, they don't, like a lot of young people, they don't applaud, but they'll get up and they'll do a little short video that they're going to put up. So that's how you recognize that they like the song.
Uh-huh.
Whereas other people our age, and even younger, they applaud.
Uh-huh.
But the young people, their applause is, "I'm going to videotape you or take a
Uh-huh.
picture."
Uh-huh.
So anyway, here is "Unholy," and so this one's quite cool. So. you can hear the drum,
Mm-hmm.
in there. So you can do that, or
That's so cool.
you can do Game of Thrones, and that's really fun. And so yeah, so in my pop set, I'll do like Ocean Eyes, like I'll do Mad Mad World, which just sounds amazing on the harp. Rolling in the Deep if I have a cellist, and I'll do Game of Thrones and Valor Morgulus from there, where I get to play these deep, 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 low notes, and really bring out the harp, the depth of the harp, and yeah. So what other questions? Okay, question time, question time.
Question time. Question time. So yeah. So you've talked a little bit about what harpists need to study. Do you have like when you're working with your students, do you have kind of a set program that you take your students through, or you work on them with individual songs and then you work on the techniques that are appropriate for that songs? How do you
Yeah.
tell harpists start teaching improvisation to harpists?
Yeah, well, not very many are interested. I do have some that are. Like I taught at a Celtic school for 20 years, and I have one harpist and she's almost 80. And when you're teaching people that are over 60, I do have students. The technique is hard for them. The proper learning fingering and styles, but just even the hand position is it takes a long time for them to learn, but they do learn. And so one of the ladies from the Celtic school, they the nice thing about the school is they have a little Thursday night where everybody meets and they get to play and they get to kind of improvise. So it's really nice if you can join a group, where people play together. And so she learned a lot of, she learned a lot of Lorena McKenna from me, but then a lot of Irish tunes also that she could play along with everyone. And then I taught her how to improvise. So the first thing when I'm teaching anybody, they have to learn the technique. And then I start them on songs that are fairly easy, in the left hand with chords and fifths. But right from the start, they learn what's a chord. They learn this is a piece of the C chord. This is a piece of a C chord. This is a piece of a C chord. Here's a fifth. Here's first inversion, second inversion. Here is 1 5 8. Here is a seventh chord. Here's the inversion. So I teach them chords and inversions right from the start, even when they're like 6 years old. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have to learn and understand. And so I give them specific exercises. That little 8-year-old boy that I was telling you about, I showed him one day. I'm like, you have to learn your chords and inversions, okay? And I know he's competitive because he's a fencer, so I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then D. I've got the wrong key, but here we go. So yeah, D, E, F, and G. Up, up, up. I said you got to go all the way up from C, from the bottom of your harp, all the way up. And I said, how fast can you do it? And he goes, time me. So we have this little competition. He goes, now you do it. And so he goes, oh, you did it in 18 seconds. Okay. And he managed to do it in 35. So, for some, and then some are like, oh, I don't want to do that, so, but anyway, so jumping back to the lady, there's very few people that actually want to learn how to improvise. But when you're playing Celtic music, it all sounds the same. So what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So, you can play the melody as single notes, or if you know your chords, you can, add the chord in, whatever inversion, whatever that melody is, you can add in a chord to, enrich it a little bit more and make it sound interesting. And then everything is, what are you going to do with your left hand?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to just roll a chord? So sometimes I'll do a simple thing, you know, you know, Scarborough Fair is a really good one. You start with fifths and then you can break the fifth, or you can do chords. Yeah, yeah. You can add some chords in, or you can do 1-5-8, or you can do 1-5-8 finish. I do that with hymns, and I'll go an octave higher. You know, you just try different things. So sometimes I say, okay, play in the middle, and then play up high, and then play lower. Yeah. So you want to look at the range, and there's so many different things that you can do to take a very simple song. So it's best if somebody is interested, is just start with something very simple, and then, like Scarborough Fair or a hymn, if they're people that go to a church, and then teach them how to do it. But not everybody's interested in in arranging and
That's
improvise.
true. That's true. But everybody on my website and my Facebook group is, or they wouldn't be there.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So
I think
it's exciting to see so many. I have 1,200 members now.
it's wonderful. And honestly, like when I'm at the restaurant and I have cellists, I only work with people that improvise because I don't want them playing everything I play. So, and they love to come to play because I give them total freedom.
Hmm.
But I always tell them, like, just don't be on top of me in the same range, like be under me or
Yep.
above. So, because the harp can get drowned out quite easily.
Right.
And, so my drummers, they get to improvise, the cellists, violinists. I love it when they improvise, but I like it when and then I'll pull back and just do chords, and they can do the solo. But you have to know chords
Yeah.
and all your inversions, and you know just lots of different things you can try, and just be creative. And it's wonderful to hear that there's that many people interested.
I know, isn't it wonderful? It's just great. So we're almost at an hour, if you can believe it. We've been
Yeah, I
talking
gotta
for
go
almost
because I have to teach.
Yep, I do too. And, but
Yeah.
I want to, in the last couple of minutes, to invite you to tell everybody if you've got upcoming concerts.
Well, I'm at the restaurant every Friday night and Sunday night
And
at
what restaurant is that?
it's called East is East
East is East.
Restaurant. So Friday night I'm at 3035 Broadway, and Sunday nights I'm at 4433 Main Street. Um, that's plenty for me because it's wedding season. They'd love for me to play more, but it's a lot to play 3 hours a night and
It's a
twice
lot
a
of
week.
fun. Yeah.
Because you have to carry your harp, and we didn't talk about injuries, but hopefully at a next little place. And then I just recently had a concert where I performed a piece I wrote for choir and harp, and it was a requiem I wrote during the pandemic.
Mm,
And it took 3 years before it actually got performed. And it's a drum, which is the heartbeat, and harp and choir. So, but no other concerts at the moment. There's sort of something in the plans for July and August with my son and my drummer, and it'll be more something with mantras and sort of spiritual kind of work.
oh yeah,
And
keep us posted and let me know and I'll post it in the Facebook group for you for sure.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I did all the talking, but
No, that's why I have you here is to do all the talking. I'm delighted to have you, and I would love to have you back. And you had a great idea to have a panel discussion on injuries and injury prevention because
uh,
we don't talk about that enough and we need to. So we'll
well,
do
I,
that very
I've
soon.
got lots to say about that.
Yeah,
So,
I had
mhm.
a serious injury when I first started playing because I didn't know what I was doing, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah,
And
and you have to have good technique, or you will get injuries. And I remember being at a wedding show once, and I I saw these two girls with bandages on their wrists, and I said, "Oh, do you study with the same teacher?" Yes. And I'm like, "Play me something." And they were doing this
Oh boy.
rocking motion. And I said, "That's why your wrists are like that." And so the students that have problems with, I've had two students with wrist problems. They were both knitters.
I had to stop knitting.
And I told them, I said, if you're knitting, you got to choose between the harp and knitting. I'm sorry, but that's why you've got pain,
It's
and
true.
you can't do this rocking motion.
Yeah.
So so they chose the harp. So it's good.
Well, thank you so much, Melinda, and I would love to have you come back and talk some more. And wish you a wonderful afternoon of teaching and playing.
Thank you,
And
Cindy. Thank you, everybody.
thank you for
Thank
being.
you.
You're
Yep.
welcome. Thank
We'll
you.
see you again soon.
Well, take
Take
care.
care. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.